Hey everybody, Kenny here. Welcome to build video for my Falconer that I played through in the first cycle of the 1.0 version of last Epoch. I named them after Gwenna Sharp from Empire's Ruin, written by Brian Staveley. So before we get into the specifics, let's see the build in action. So now that we've seen that in an empowered timeline, this character is able to perform very well, both in terms of damage and survivability, I once again introduce you to my Falconer build. Baseline of the build is that I'm using Falcon Fists, so that this is an unarmed build where our character's damage is primarily coming from the fact that this particular unique allows our Cinder Strikes to be heavily invested by additional damage that's determined by the number of levels in Falconry that we have. For that reason, this is actually a terrible roll for these gloves. This is unfortunately the only one that I was able to get to drop the entire cycle. I was only able to get this one pair of Falcon Fists the entire cycle. But as we can see, it only rolled a 1 out of 4 on the increased levels to Falconry. In order to get the most out of it, you'd obviously want either a 3 or a 4 to the number of extra Falconry levels, since as we can see on that first stanza at the top of the suffixes, you gain increased Cinder Strike melee damage per level of Falconry while unarmed. And the range is just 12 to 16. We had a 14 on there, so not bad. But the range on the damage, it doesn't really matter that much. What matters is how many levels of Falconry you have. Obviously, at max level, we have 20 levels of Falconry, and then we have 1 additional level from our gloves, and 1 additional level from our hat here. And because we don't have too many additional levels of Falconry, this is a Falcon Fist build, but it's not really a Falcon Fist build. As you very well would have noticed in that showcase, I was definitely using Cinder Strikes, but I wasn't using it all the time. It wasn't my primary form of output. I was mostly focusing on using Aerial Assault and Dive Bomb to do the majority of our damage, and then like in really, well, like when I thought, oh, maybe I need to put out even more damage, then that's when I would use my Falcon Strikes. Yeah, but this is a really effective build, very fun to play. I played this pretty much exactly how it's set up right now for the majority of the game. The only real change that I made as I leveled was at the beginning, I started it off as a Puncture build. And so like I leveled it in Puncture all the way to Death Imprint. And then once I unlocked the Falconry Mastery, then I like pushed for Net. And then I used the Puncture+Net combo for a very long time, which was a combination that I really liked. Because what you can do with Puncture+Net is that if you head down and get to Spear Trap here, then it makes it that your nets use Puncture. And so by having your Puncture have the Death Imprint bonus on it, it makes it that you throw out some nets and then you're constantly just dropping Shadow Daggers on enemies. Shadow Daggers is a lot of damage, and so if you have a lot of physical damage in your build, like you're just pumping out damage by throwing those nets at enemies. It's a really cool combination of skills, and I really liked using it, but eventually it got to a point where my Cinder Strike just became powerful enough on its own that it just didn't make sense for me to continue using that combo, which is when I switched over to Explosive Trap. Now we can see Explosive Trap doesn't do a lot of damage. The main purpose of what this serves in the build is that there is a modification to the skill here called Hold This, which essentially turns Explosive Trap into a sticky bomb. So when you hit an enemy using your Cinder Strike, you put a explosive trap on them, and so like this just becomes basically an additional passive form of damage. But once again, we're not using it for the damage, since it doesn't do a lot of damage. The reason why we're using this in the build at all is that there are upgrades to it that make it that it affects how our Falcon works and our skills work. So Sky Signal here, we can see that when the explosive trap detonates, our Falcon is able to penetrate elemental and physical resistances. So it gains a buff that allows it to do that. And then with Free Lofting Bird, makes it that when our explosive traps detonate, our Falcon skills recover a portion of the remaining cooldown. And so if we're using our Cinder Strike in any meaningful way, then we'll be constantly just applying explosive trap, and it'll be constantly be triggering, and it'll constantly be causing our Falcon skills to recover their cooldown and give our Falcon additional penetration. You know, like it's a great synergy for how we're using Cinder Strike in this build, and it makes it that all of our Falcon skills are that much more effective. For Cinder Strike itself, the path I went for was getting Inferno, so it has just more base fire damage, and also you get double extra damage for the first attack. A Blast Wave, so that way that first attack hits a larger area and does more damage. Oil Coating, so that we're constantly building up a debuff on the enemies that give us additional damage per stack of the Oil Coating, as well as causing it to give us fire penetration, and even make it that our ignites get even more fire penetration. And then Fire Eater, which makes it that we're able to use this skill in order to replenish our missing health and mana as necessary. This was useful early on, but the further in we got, it couldn't hold up to the amount of damage that enemies do. If I had chosen to get Snapping Strikes, then that combo probably would have been better, but I didn't go for that in this build, so using our Cinder Strike to heal just is not that effective. And for Aerial Assault, the path I went down was making sure that heal itself did more damage, but more importantly had better cooldown recovery speed. So that was just like everything that I went for was just aiming for any kind of recovery I could go for, whether it be cooldown recovery, health recovery, mana recovery, but most importantly, cooldown recovery. Then eventually I went and I got the Caltrop upgrades for it. Like the Caltrops don't really do too much damage, The only reason I got these was that it was a way to progress the skill in an interesting way, but like didn't really do anything that like required us to branch out in how we're building this character. Because if you had gone like the Featherstorm route or the projectile training route, like these, like those, like the other going any of the other ways really only makes sense if you are like pushing a projectile, at throwing damage or using bows or something. Like it doesn't really help if you're doing a melee build the way that I'm doing. Then with our dive bomb, the way I picked our upgrades for that is once again like my main focus wasn't on doing more damage, it was on improving the cooldown recovery speed so that we could use it as often as possible. So yes, by going for focused hitter, we're getting more damage and we're making it that it's free cost. More importantly, as I mentioned, is that we are going for making it that our skills are recovering faster. So Rush of the Hunt, more cooldown recovery speed, Rapid Pursuit makes it that our aerial assault is recovering even faster. So pretty much like the way that I always do it is like if I see the group ahead of time, I would drop the dive bomb on them, fly into the group, and then by the time I've reached the group, usually my dive bomb will have recovered and I'll use it again. If it hasn't, then I would just start hitting them with Cinder Strikes. But it makes it that they synergize very well by doing it that way. Then with Rushed Wings, just more damage and reduced delay, which is why it just hits so fast. Like without this, there'll be a long period between activating the skill and when it hits. Which actually, so the reason why Rushing Wings has a damage bonus on it at all is that the damage done by the skill is actually based on the amount of time it takes for the Falcon to hit after you initiate the skill. So actually the longer it takes to hit, the more damage it does. So by reducing the delay, you're reducing the damage, which is why the skill itself has a damage bonus on it. I mean, look, why this upgrade here has a damage bonus on it. And then the reason I went down this line here isn't for the Hindering Beak, it isn't for the Exposed Defenses, it isn't for the Talon Blades, and it isn't for Gale of Blades. The whole reason why I went down this line is because there is a synergy with Explosive Trap here that makes it that if an explosive trap happens to be on an enemy when you use Dive Bomb, then it makes it that it automatically explodes, does more damage, and it increases the area that the explosion occurs in. But once again, like Explosive Trap isn't doing more damage. It's just that this was a fun little additional synergy we could add to the build. But as I mentioned, the whole thing we were aiming for was making it that we are improving how often we're able to use this skill. And then, of course, most importantly, our Falconry, the upgrades that I went for, the Falconer's Mark, because Falconer's Mark is incredibly powerful. As the Falcon hits an enemy, it marks them, and when the next hit against the marked enemy hits, then you do a crap load more damage. Then you get Wake of Wings, and it just makes it that when you consume the Falconer's Mark, then you get a buff that makes you faster, makes you move faster. Marking Strikes makes it that Falcon can cause Falconer's Mark by using Dive Bomb, by using Aerial Assault, by using Falcon Strikes, by getting Falconer's Journey. We make it that for every level that our character has, the Falcon just gains more damage. By every point index we have, our Falcon gains more damage. Is it a bird? Just more damage for the Falcon. And we triple the damage of that upgrade for the Falcon Strike's ability, which is why it's just crazy strong. Agile Prey makes it that, once again, our Falcon just does more damage. And if the target is moving, then it just triples the amount of extra damage it gets from that. Side by Side reduces the cooldown of Falconer Strike whenever we directly use a melee skill trained for the hunt. Makes it that whatever our highest damage bonus is applies directly to the Falcon at 75%. Evian Stamina makes it that our Falconer Strike just does more hits just straight up more hits, and the Falcon has faster melee attack speed. Yeah, so I just went all in on making it that our Falcon is the one that is the hero here. Like we're helping out, but it's our Falcon that's really doing everything. Then we can see in our stat spread, we are all in on dexterity. So I have 99 dexterity here. I have an okay amount of health. Maxed out all of our resistances. We have 982 armor, 682 dodge. Have some block effectiveness and block chance since we are wearing a shield. Stone avoidance, some ward retention. Our endurance is 44%. Our threshold is 506. Have some critical strike avoidance and some glancing blow chance. Our highest increased damage for our character is in physical, and so 75% of that applies to our Falcon. And so when we look at our minion, our increased minion damage is very high. And obviously for physical, even higher. We're just all in on making sure that our Falcon is doing lots and lots and lots of damage. In terms of our masteries, Swift Assassin for the increased attack speed and base physical damage. Like we didn't really go all in on this because once again, our character isn't really the one doing the most damage here. Then all in on Steady Hand and in all of our masteries. So just all in on this because it gives us extra dexterity and extra health. Inside of Marksman, we went all in on Focus Fire for once again for all the dexterity, for the extra dodge rating debuff. Inside of Blade Dancer, all in on Cloak of Shadows once again because of all of the dexterity, plus we get the extra glancing blow chance. Then in Falconer, all in on Agile Hunt for the dexterity, and to make it that with the 5-point bonus, anything that is considered throwing damage from our Falcon has a bonus based on our dexterity. And then evasion tactics for even more dexterity, and also making it that we have more armor and more dodge rating. And back in Rogue, we went all in on Guile for the dodge rating and poison resistance. Then only 1 point in evasion because we're just taking it so that we can get over to agility. So that we can go all in to make it that we have a chance on hit for haste, just to gain haste. And we have increased damage per increased movement speed. So when we have haste going, we're hitting a little harder. And then that synergizes over in the Falconer tree by getting Raptor's Wings, which is a passive that makes it that we have a chance to gain haste when either us or our Falcon hits an enemy. On top of the chance that we have from the Rogue Mastery, we also have an additional chance from here. And once again, even more damage when we have haste. Makes it that our Falcon hits even faster when they have haste. And the reason that we are using these boots here, the Advent of the Erased, which are the Weaver's Will boots, is that one of the bonuses to this, so while, it's really nice that it happened to get 7 vitality and a nice amount of health regen, as well as some dodge rating, the main reason why we're using these, the second of the white stanzas, we have a chance to gain haste when a nearby enemy dies. We have less damage taken from damage over time while we have haste. And when we gain haste, we gain ward, as well as making it that our minions gain both haste and frenzy. So now, anytime we have haste, we're gaining ward, and we're making it that our Falcon is gaining haste and frenzy. So haste makes it that you move faster, frenzy makes it that you attack faster. So our Falcon just attacking faster every time we get frenzy. Every time we get haste to occur, and we're constantly having haste happening through our passives and through these boots. So it is a very cool synergy that we actually got pretty early on. We got these boots, I think around Act 5, if I'm remembering right. Don't remember specifically. But I know we got them pretty early on. And I kept them the entire game because of just how perfectly they match with our build. And then Outlander's Tenacity, both for the dodge rating, and it makes it that our base endurance threshold of 20% of our max health goes up to 35%. Which is why when we look at our endurance threshold, we can see we have 506. So we have more than a third of our life as endurance threshold. So our endurance comes into play sooner than it would otherwise. And we just 1 point in Handler for a little bit of extra minion damage, then a full 6 points in Tactician so that our Falcon does even more melee damage and throwing damage, then 1 point in Deflect and Weave for the increased block and glancing blow chance, and a full 5 points into Relentless Talons so that both us and our minions deal even more damage. And we have the 3-point bonus so that anytime our Falcon hits an enemy, we get health back based on our dexterity. Then 1 point in Poise for the extra glancing blow chance, and a full 6 points in Stymphalian Feathers for the increased armor based on our dexterity. And it makes it that we get a buff to our armor anytime our anytime our Falcon has hit within the last 4 seconds. So if more than 4 seconds have gone by and our Falcon hasn't hit, then we lose our bonus. Yeah, so that is our passive build. For our idols, my main focus was just on making sure that our minion was getting as much damage as possible, as well as covering for any resistances that we were lacking in. In terms of our equipment, we have a turquoise amulet, which gives us implicit increased minion damage, as well as making it that our minion has increased crit chance, which is actually something that's worth investing in. Like, if there was a way to increase the base minion crit chance, now definitely invest in that. But there's nothing I could find to help me do that. But if you can get it, go for it. And then the rolls on it, we have increased minion damage, increased physical damage, and the increased shock chance doesn't matter. Shock doesn't matter for us. We're not doing lightning damage, but we get a good amount of elemental resistance from that. A very important piece of gear for this build is the Falconer's helm. And what makes this so important is that not only does it give us base dexterity and damage for our Falcon, it also is the it is the only slot that we can actually put Falconry onto. So our extra level to Falconry are only able to put here. We can't put it on any other slot on this character. So obviously, like, a perfect roll here would be a Falconry helm that happens to have a good range on the dexterity. So, like 5 or 6 is what you'd want for the dexterity. And then like 20 to 24 is what you'd want on the melee or throwing damage for your Falcon. And then, for like perfect roll on this would be that you had an exalted, that it dropped as an exalted version that happened to have the exalted affix be the Falconry. Because then it could be like a +2 or even a +3 to Falconry, and with all of the increased minion damage to boot. But then I also crafted on some dexterity and fire resist on this. The poison resist, I don't care about the poison resist. The poison resist doesn't matter for us, because we have poison resist in our build and from our belt here. So with our Commander Spider Silk Sash, just the implicit is that it has poison and cold resist on it. So since we have 40% from our Rogue Mastery and 35% from this belt, it literally means that any other form of poison resist in the entire build means nothing. It does nothing for us. So the only reason I used this was because it had a good roll on the implicit dexterity and the implicit damage for the Falcon. If it didn't have those, I would have tossed this because it had the poison resistance on it. For our falconry armor, once again, this is a very important piece of equipment for us because it has implicit dexterity and implicit damage to our falcon. I crafted on lots of dexterity, necrotic resistance, and some cold resistance. So like this combination here makes it that our falcon does a lot of extra damage. Then for our shield, we have a shield that has an okay amount of block chance, a good amount of endurance, a very nice amount of block effectiveness. Then we crafted on physical resistance, health, and physical damage. The reason for the physical damage is twofold. First is that because of train to hunt, our falcon is getting 75% of our highest damage that we are invested in. So by getting sources of physical damage, it just makes it that we're able to deal that much more damage with our falcon. And the other reason is that for a time I've been contemplating bringing back our net and puncture combo because I really like that combo. You know, the spider silk stash, this is just like the best belt you can get in endgame. Just because, you know, it has poison and cold resist on it. So you don't have to think about those too much. And +4 potion slots. Then I crafted on minion damage and void resistance. So just a really good resistance belt with some extra damage for our pet on it. Then for our rings, one of them is a coral ring, so it gives us more vitality and health regen. And I crafted on some minion damage, some extra dexterity, some extra necrotic and physical resistance. Get lots of good resistances and offenses on here. For our opal ring, we got a one that has the top roll for the attributes. So we get a good amount of increased cooldown recovery speed, as well as getting +2 to all of our attributes. And then I crafted on more minion damage, more dexterity, more physical resistance. And of course, I've gone over the Falcon Fists and the Advent of the Erased. The Falcon Fist also, this happened to have legendary potential on it. So we have some additional void resistance on those because when I use I can't remember what it's called. When you go to the Temporal Sanctum dungeon and use the thing at the end. When I used the thing at the end of the dungeon, the affix that got moved over was void resistance. It wasn't what I wanted. I was hoping to get more endurance, but is what it is. And then I have a Commander's Ruby Dice, so even more fire resistance, chance to bleed on hit. Crafted on more minion damage, crafted on more dexterity, more health, more endurance threshold. All around, great relic for us. And then lastly, for our Monolith of Fate, the ones that really matter for us, even though like it's not going to seem like it matters too much. Like for Fall of the Outcasts, I have the increased unique drop rate. For the Stolen Lance, I have increased glove drop rate. So like, you know, like those are going to seem like they're not important. But to me, they are because of the fact that these give us a better chance of getting our gloves. By having those, there's a better chance of getting our gloves. And even though like I've had terrible luck in getting my gloves to drop, you might not, like it might, like you may get the best roll like pretty quick if you're able to get these in a good way. These aren't the empowered upgrades. These are just like the initial, when I initially ran this, these were like what I got. So the only one that's actually empowered right now is Black Sun. So for Black Sun, I have 59% void resistance, which is the reason why I wasn't too enthused when I got the void resistance on the gloves, because I did not need void resistance. It was like the one resistance that I did not need, and it's what I got. In Ending the Storm, I got lightning resistance, so that helped us out with getting that resistance covered. Then for Reign of Dragons, I have critical strike avoidance. So that's where all of our critical strike avoidance pretty much comes from here. In Age of Winter, I have some increased armor. Spirits of Fire, I have increased minion damage, which I got a great roll on that. But yeah, so those are all of the things that make up the build to allow it to be as effective as it is. That gives us all the defenses that we have. Yeah, so it is great fun. Like honestly, like one of the most high energy and like frenetic builds that I've ever played in a game like this. Like I highly recommend playing this just because like it feels so cool to play this. You're just like rushing around, like going like you're like the bird's slamming down, you're beating the crap out of everything by punching it, yeah. Or you're having the really cool like swooshing like around the screen thing when you have the Falcon Strikes going. You know, like you're rushing into a group of enemies using the aerial assault. You know, you have cool little explosions happening every now and then that don't really matter for your damage, but you know, like work towards the aesthetic of everything. Like it's a very aesthetically pleasing as well as just effective build to play. I hope that you give some of these ideas a try and whatever cycle like you plan on playing in Best Epoch. That's gonna be for this one. Thanks everybody for stopping by and checking this out. If you found any of these tips useful, appreciate doing all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and maybe share the video with a friend. Until next time, stay Victus, Vires and Amaris, and bye.